The Lavender Witch Quest of the Supreme. In a realm veiled by mist, where magic hummed in the very air, Kelvin the Lavender Witch stood before a colossal waterfall. Its roar was a constant thunder. Before her floated the three forms of Hecate, the triple goddess, their faces ancient and knowing. They watched her, their silence a heavy cloak upon the jungle clearing. 3 stone sentinels guarded the falls, a centaur, a troll, and a goblin, all frozen in time. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the clearing. High atop the waterfall, a magnificent white tiger appeared, its fur like spun moonlight. This was Baihu, the last mystical beast. With a roar that shook the stones, he leaped. Baihu landed, the impact a tremor through the earth. Hecate's forms merely floated, undisturbed. "What is your wish, witch?" The tiger's voice growled, a sound of rock grinding rock. Kelvin met his golden eyes, her own lavender ones burning with ambition. "My goal is to become the supreme." Baihu let out a low chuckle. "A lofty goal, little witch. To prove your worth, you must face me. But first, a test." He nodded his massive head toward the stone figures. "Touch the goblin." Without hesitation, Kelvin walked to the moss-covered statue and laid her hand upon its cold stone face. The world dissolved into a blinding light. She rematerialized in a stinking, cavernous world under a sickly green sky. Instantly, a chittering horde of goblins surged toward her. With a flick of her wrist, a shimmering wall of lavender energy erupted from the ground, intercepting the first wave. Goblins shrieked as they collided with the barrier, some dissolving into purple dust. A goblin shaman, his face a mask of fury, began a guttural chant, weaving dark, festering energy. In response, Kelvin extended her other hand. A torrent of glowing lavender petals erupted from her palm, forming a miniature hurricane that tore through the goblin ranks, disorienting and disarming them. The shaman's dark magic faltered. But the goblins were relentless. From the shadows, archers loosed a volley of poisoned arrows. With a graceful twist, Kelvin conjured a shield of swirling lavender smoke. The arrows vanished harmlessly into the magical mist, which then expanded, engulfing the archers in a thick, sweet haze that left them coughing and blinded. As the main force pressed closer, Kelvin withdrew her lavender fairy wand. It glowed with an intense inner light. She slammed its base into the earth, and with a guttural roar, massive tendrils of thorny, luminous lavender vines burst forth, ensnaring dozens of goblins in their grasp. A particularly large goblin brute, wielding a rusty axe, broke through the vines and lunged. The axe connected, knocking Kelvin to the ground. Pain lanced through her, but as the brute raised its axe for the final blow, she raised a hand. A stream of concentrated lavender fire, brilliant and pure, erupted and engulfed the creature. The brute's demise did not scatter the horde, it galvanized them. A guttural horn blast echoed through the cavern, a sound of grim purpose. From the deepest shadows emerged a figure that dwarfed the others, a goblin king, clad in jagged iron plate, astride a monstrous, carapaced beast. His eyes, small and cruel, fixed on Kelvin. "So the flower witch has thorns," the king rasped, his voice like grinding stone. "But thorns break against iron," he sneered, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. "My turn." He raised a crude scepter, and a phalanx of elite goblin guards, larger and bearing cruelly enchanted blades, stepped forward, their movements disciplined and menacing. They came at her not as a mob, but as a unit. Her lavender vines were severed by their glowing axes, her energy walls cracked under their coordinated blows. Kelvin was forced into a desperate dance, her lavender smoke a tool for misdirection as she parried and dodged. A blade slipped past her guard, slicing a fiery line across her arm. The pain was no simple cut. A black, creeping cold spread from the wound, a poison of dark magic. Her own power felt sluggish, muted by the foul enchantment. She knew she couldn't win a prolonged fight. Gritting her teeth against the encroaching chill, she drew all her focus upward, gathering her waning strength into a single, pulsating orb of lavender light. With a final, desperate cry, she thrust her hands forward, unleashing the orb. It detonated in a silent, blinding nova of lavender light, a wave of pure power that vaporized the elite guard. The backlash slammed her into the cavern wall. She crumpled, coughing, and saw a dark, purple-tinged stain of her own blood on the stone. The Goblin King stood untouched, a shimmering shield of black energy flickering around him. He laughed, a horrid, rattling sound. Pretty firework, witch. He pointed his scepter at the ground beneath her feet. Now, let the earth claim you. The stone beneath Kelvin softened, turning to a black, grasping sludge. She was sinking, trapped in a foul mire that clung to her like a shroud. It pulled her down, the stench of decay filling her senses. The king's monstrous mount scuttled closer, its huge, serrated mandibles clicking in anticipation. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through her exhaustion. This was not a test of magic. It was a test of will. Closing her eyes, Kelvin shut out the chittering goblins and the stinking bog. She reached deeper within herself, past the elegant petals and soothing smoke, to the raw, untamed heart of her power. The air around her began to crackle, and the hem of her lavender dress started to smolder. Her eyes snapped open, no longer lavender but blazing vortexes of pure amethyst light. A scream tore from her throat, a sound of primal power, and the energy erupted. Not as vines or fire, but as 1,000 jagged shards of solid crystalline lavender. They tore through the bog, shattering the dark magic and freeing her. The king's mount shrieked as the crystal shards ripped through its armored plates, green ichor spraying from a dozen wounds. Kelvin rose, levitating on the sheer force of her will, her hair a wild storm around her. The elegant witch was gone, replaced by a terrifying avatar of magical fury. For the first time, fear showed on the Goblin King's face. "Kill her! Kill her now!" he shrieked, his voice cracking. At his command, the entire remaining goblin army, a vast sea of snarling faces and rusted blades, surged forward in a final, desperate wave. Kelvin met the tide of bodies with a storm of her own making. Lavender lightning, raw and destructive, arced from her fingertips, turning goblins to blackened silhouettes. She wove the light into a solid blade of amethyst energy and carved a path of destruction through their ranks, a reaper in a field of monsters. She cut her way to the king. He swung his scepter, unleashing a torrent of black, necrotic energy that withered the very air. Kelvin met it with a focused beam of pure, crystalline power from her outstretched hand. The two forces collided with a deafening roar, shaking the cavern to its foundations. The lavender light, born of pure will, overwhelmed the king's foul magic. It consumed the necrotic blast and engulfed the Goblin King. He screamed, a final, agonizing curse that was cut short as he dissolved into a pile of foul-smelling dust, his iron crown clattering to the stone floor. The remaining goblins, their king and their courage gone, broke and fled into the darkness. Her power spent, the raw energy receded, leaving only exhaustion and pain. Kelvin collapsed to her knees. Another blinding light, and she was back at the waterfall. The air was clean and sweet. Hecate had vanished. The goblin statue now pulsed with a soft, inner light. And there, sitting patiently before it, was Baihu, the great white tiger, waiting. The first trial was over.